Thank you very much for pressing the red button and joining us here on the F1 Forum. We're still in the McLaren garage where Lewis Hamilton's guys are celebrating a win today. Smiles everywhere you look. And in fact, there's actually still, if you look, there's a little bit of champagne left in here. If you want to, David, you can taste race-winning champagne for a 14th time.
It's a big moment.
What do you think? Or maybe we just put a race-winning top on you. That looks good, doesn't it? Does this bring back happy memories, DC?
It's so long ago since I won a Grand Prix, I don't remember, but yeah. How does that look on me?
Now you resemble Eddie Jordan.
Oh, really? Yeah, it looks like an Eddie race shirt. Actually, well, yeah, I'm speechless now, actually, but maybe we can get a word. Can we bring in
bring
Paul here? We're going to bring in Taft.
Does Paul get a round of applause for his efforts today?
Come on. Maybe Paul should just come in the middle there, come in between Jake and I. Now, you're number one on Lewis's car. You were cutting it very fine with the problem before the race. Did you ever doubt that you'd be starting from the grid rather than the end of the pit lane?
Never any doubt whatsoever. These guys are fantastic. They do a brilliant job. I knew we would get there. Somehow, I knew we would get there.
Just talk us through how the situation unfolded, because we were actually live at the front of your garage hearing a few issues going on, and I said to David, are they struggling to start this car? And he said, no, it's fine. Lewis's car's fine, which is what a driver is always like, because he trusts the guys around him. When did you first realise there was a serious problem?
When I saw the Mercedes engineer Marv running like a headless chicken, I thought, oh God, we're in trouble. So basically, we put too much fuel in the car and then tried to take it out of the car. Which we did eventually. Got it fired up, sent the car to the grid the first time ever, not complete. Completed the car on the grid, and that's it. It's all done. Happy days.
Very unusual to see the car going round to the grid without that little top body. And presumably, there's fear that, it could suck off other parts from the car because it's changing the aerodynamic shape. So was Lewis given a message to go particularly slow to the grid?
Yeah, he was told he had plenty of time to get to the grid, take his time, get the car there in two pieces, because obviously it wasn't one piece. And yeah, we just finished it off at the grid, basically. That was it.
Let's just have a look, actually, at the madness that was going on inside this garage. And now that you've won the race, you can be totally honest with us. At this point, are you thinking, oh no, my boy's car's not going to make it out?
No, basically it's organised panic.
Is it? Yes. It doesn't look very organised, it just looks like panic.
No, I promise you it is. It's organised panic, lots of swearing, unfortunately. But yeah, we know we're always going to make it. We will always make it to the grid, I promise you, as he knows.
Well, yeah, I don't remember starting from the pit lane too often at all, actually. Only after I maybe did something on the way to the grid. But yeah, that gave us all a scary moment. But you presumably couldn't have dreamt that the rest of the afternoon would have played out in such a fantastic result from Lewis. And he seemed to be on the edge in KL. He wasn't happy, obviously, with the tyre situation. He looked a little bit frustrated after the race. And he was very emotional after this victory. He's a man that really wears his heart on his sleeve when he goes out on track.
No, he definitely does, yeah. He's he's an awesome talent. I think he knew he was better than what the race was in Kuala Lumpur. He proved it today. He's a fantastic driver. He's got the talent. Just got to give him the right car and he can do the business. Simple as that.
Well, you gave him the right car today. You gave him a car that got to the finish. Give yourselves a round of applause, guys, for the effort that you went to today, because watching it from the outside, DC and I were just glad we weren't in here getting involved in it. Yeah. Well done. Thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so... Oh, he's a hero now, isn't he? So, here you go. This is what you get for winning the race for both a driver and a constructor. The question is, what would you like to say to us? What would you like to do to get involved today? You can get involved via Twitter, is at Jake Humphrey F1, or of course you can email us, which is f1@bbc.co.uk. Plenty to talk about, plenty to look at. No drinking though, because that's banned on the F1 forum. Right now though, we can check out the highlights of a truly incredible Grand Prix.
They're lined up in the same 200 metres of tarmac for our entertainment, and like bulls, when they see red, they get ready to charge. The red lights seem to be on for an eternity. Vettel feels he needs the cover button straight away, and that's why he's not had a great start. He's moving around like crazy. Button leads the Grand Prix. Hamilton's up the inside. Rosberg's up the inside of Vettel too. Vettel will get a better line as they go into turn 3. If he can hang it out there, he's really got to keep position. He does so. Massa right behind. He's outstarted Alonso again. Then it's two Force Indias. So Sebastian Vettel, he looked tense on the grid, and that's the worst start we've seen him make for quite some time. that right rear didn't look quite right, unless it was just the painted stripe was not very accurate on that. So that's a set of soft tyres, unlike this man, Mark Webber, who's just falling back. Look, his thing's got no grip at all, David. And now Barrichello's passed him as well.
No,
So-
I think not according to the screen. It's we can see the Red Bull guys, a bit of activity. We're just looking from the commentary box here.
Look, I said the right rear didn't look good, didn't I, on the way out? So, yeah, Barrichello has passed Webber. All Webber's got behind him now, the two Kovalainen's behind him next, but I didn't think that right rear was on properly when it left the pit garage. But what sort of mess will he make of the underneath that? It should be all right. Shouldn't have even get it back to the pits. These two are going to come in and get themselves a fresh set of tyres for the undercut. Crucially though, if they don't have too much traffic when they drop back into the racetrack. And look at that, he's in the wrong pit.
Stopped in the wrong box. This is the battle of the teams here. 24 guys working the cars. And crucially, Sebastian Vettel gets away first. That was a terrible mistake there by Jenson Button.
How did he do that? It's all dressed in blue. Button stopped at the wrong pit lane. That's something I did in my very first test for Tyrrell when I got it all wrong. But traffic not too bad then. That's worked out brilliantly for Vettel. So Button then behind Alonso, presumably halfway down the straight. Button's rear wing will open. There it goes. And he should get some mighty speed now. And Alonso will just go to the inside. See, I think Hamilton would just send one up the inside there. I think, and he's just going to out-drag him through the exit. He didn't need to risk it up the inside. Button had it all worked out long before I did. Moving into lap 35, lap 36 now. And Hamilton fancies a look up the inside into turn 1. And Button had to give him some space. Hamilton then, a beautiful move on Jenson Button. So Button, I think, will be frustrated with that. Hamilton got a better drive out of the last corner. A nice slipstream down the pit straight. And Hamilton will flick up the inside, surely, and Rosberg gives him the way. Hamilton's through. Second place then for Lewis Hamilton as he gets past Felipe Massa. This then is for the lead. And he's looking up the inside, he's through. Hamilton takes the lead. Absolutely brilliant on lap 52. He's got so much more grip, poise and confidence through there. Webber could well be on the podium. And he's now got exactly what he needs. He's got all the tools available to take a sensational third place away from Jenson Button. Webber has got enough grip to go straight around the outside there, and they're so close together. Button's not giving up easily. He just wants Webber to have such a tight entry to the last corner, and it doesn't matter. Webber's not falling for that one. He started on the second row of the grid. He had problems going to the grid. He was so happy he saved extra tyres for the race. It's paid dividends. Lewis Hamilton brilliantly wins the Chinese Grand Prix. Vettel somehow salvages second. Mark Webber, after a stunning performance, is third and on the podium. His arm goes in the air, and rightly so.
And this is where Jenson Button should have stopped during that Grand Prix. David, where did he end up?
Well, it's quite easy to mistake that little round board for this big square one with a bit of a giveaway there. It says Red Bull. He actually stopped here. But maybe he was just wanting to spread the pit lane love.
Have you ever seen that in a Grand Prix before?
I made a lot of mistakes in my career, and I didn't even make that mistake. So it'll be interesting to see what Jenson has to say on that. Presumably, he was just completely distracted with what was going on.
At the end of the Grand Prix as you were running down the stairs.
Under the tunnel, I lose the feed.
Yep. He said I was looking down and ended up in the wrong pit box. Let's have a look at it again. Can you relate to that? Looking down and ended up in the wrong pit box? Is it just the fury of a Grand Prix? There's so much for a driver to think about.
There is a lot going on, and although the speed is obviously controlled when you come in there, but it's still, you're trying to slot yourself into quite a small gap. But that is a very unusual error from Jenson. We're not used to seeing him make mistakes like that. But,
if you just,
maybe we'd just expect so much from the rest of the time.
And if you just, behind us, all of the Red Bull guys have appeared and are looking at the monitor that we're looking at to try and work out what happened. They look as perplexed as we do. Do you want to go and have a word with them and see what their reaction was to that moment, David?
Hold on, I think...
As they all... Well, look at this. David walks over there and they all run away. What happened there, DC? Come on, I thought you were friends with them.
Yeah, surely I didn't leave that bad of impression when I stopped racing. I feel like Eddie Jordan here for a moment. Everyone's running away from me. Okay, right, I'm now going to have to do the walk of shame and see if I can get one person to...
That's great.
Oh, Joe, come and hold on. All right, Crunch, you'll come and give us. Right, Mark Webber's number 1 here is going to give us a word. We're just having a discussion on the forum here to how it felt when Jenson Button stopped in your pit box rather than McLaren's. Now, what position do you actually have within the pit stop?
I do the left rear wheel gun.
Right, and did you immediately realise that was a McLaren and you didn't start to get the wheel gun on there, or did you for a moment go into auto mode and start trying to service Jenson Button's car?
No, I knew it was a McLaren, and I realised they were cheating from the beginning.
His thoughts, not ours. Were you not tempted, though, to take Jenson Button's rear wheel off?
No way. I was pretty disappointed when he wanted to stop in the box, though, to slow us down.
Oh, really? You think that's what it was, honestly?
I honestly do think they were trying to cheat, yes. Shouldn't say that, but
I'm guessing you guys have had a chat about it.
Sorry?
I'm guessing you guys have had a chat about it amongst yourselves, and that's the conclusion?
Yeah, no.
Right.
No, we ain't cheating.
So your personal opinion is a cheeky one by JB?
Sorry, I can't hear because of the music.
You just thought it was a cheeky move by Jenson?
I thought it was a very cheeky move by Jenson to try and slow us down.
Okay, well, moving on. Great drive from Mark Webber. Unexpected to come from 18th to 3rd. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, well, it's been a horrific weekend. We've had lots and lots of problems, but it paid off well in the end. I mean, coming from 18th to 3rd is something special.
Okay,
great result. Well done.
Thanks very much. Well done. I'm sure that it's great to work to when you're trying to pack away for going back to Europe, but it's not so great to listen to when you're on the television. I can't really work out if he was joking or not there.
Well,
what do you think? It was a joke, wasn't it?
I think so. I hope so. That was not a view that I was expecting to be shared. And when you asked whether they'd had a team conversation,
yeah,
the moment from you asking the question to the answer seemed like such a long time, but thankfully they've not had a team view. But I think emotions run high. These guys work extremely long hours. You know, they have this curfew in place now that means they have to spend, I think, at least 6 hours tucked up in their bed from each of the nights leading up to obviously Parc Fermé Day, which is Saturday. So at this point now, the work is, we think's finished. We turn off the television and go and do what we're doing. But they obviously have a few hours now of packing up, preparing all these cars to send them back. So it's a hard slog from them.
Sure. Now let's talk about what really made a big difference in that race. And if we make our way down, actually, we'll eventually get to a big old set of tyres, and then we can talk about them when we get there. The Pirelli tyres came in over the winter. The teams weren't happy about them. The drivers weren't happy about them. Lewis Hamilton famously said, "This isn't racing. This is just driving around trying to look after your tyres." But they have given us an incredible Grand Prix today, and not a bad Grand Prix in Malaysia.
Well, that absolutely, and that's why I gave credit to them during the Grand Prix, because they've only had criticism in all of the pre-season build-up, but they have given different strategies can win this race. It used to be pretty much track position at the last pit stop, it was all over, and then you could providing reliability played out, you knew who was going to be the podium result. But we're seeing races being decided right at the end. Lewis Hamilton pitted 4 laps from the end of the Malaysian race. He took the lead, I think, 4 laps before the end, and there you can see it, a selection of the Pirellis there. That's actually the intermediate tyre, which has clearly not been used this weekend. And
just explain to people at home who look at a car tyre and they have a tyre on their car for 6 months, 12,000 miles a year, whatever it is. What is it about this tyre that's been perfected so that it achieves the desired aim which we saw today? It's still hot, actually, if you feel that.
Yeah, that'll have come out of the blankets. It's a mainly synthetic tyre, so the actual quantity of rubber that's in there, I believe, is very small, and that's different from what we've seen with previous tyre manufacturers. And they have designed the tyre to have a certain lifespan. And if you've got 56 racing laps, you don't want every compound of tyre to be able to do 57 racing laps. Otherwise, there's not really, other than the fact in the regulations you have to run both the tyres, there's no need for you to come in and do pit stops. So we saw in KL 1 week ago, the actual lifespan was about 11 laps on the option tyre. Yeah. So it's forcing teams to have to do strategic decisions. The other thing is as well, that once the tyre wears down and you lose the gauge, the actual depth of the tread, suddenly you lose temperature and the performance goes off the end of the scale, so you're going 5 seconds a lap slower. So you have to pit just at that critical moment. Now if you hit that cliff in the turn 15 on this circuit, you can come into the pit lane. If you hit it turn 2, you've then got another 5 kilometres of racetrack where you're just going to be losing chunks of time, and that's why the undercut is so powerful in the race now. Amazing when you think that it came down to the setup of the car, the practice sessions, qualifying, and in the race, the fact that Sebastian Vettel had done 6 laps more than the man chasing him meant that he lost the win in the end. A quick mention of Ferrari while we're here. You can see them again clearing down, about to head back to Italy. In fact, the Ferrari bosses have already been back to Italy since the last race to talk about their respective issues with performance. Felipe Massa, though, and it was said in commentary, looked like he came alive today. Well, let's remind ourselves, he's won 11 Grand Prix. He was teammates with Michael Schumacher. He beat Michael on his day. He almost won the World Championship in 2008. He was able to beat Kimi Räikkönen, who was obviously an extremely fast racing driver and a world champion. So with 11 victories under him, we should not really doubt his pedigree. But I think the fact that when he had that accident in Budapest a year or so ago, then his performance hasn't quite been at the same level just prior to that incident. But maybe he's rediscovering the form now.
Okay, well, we'll find out. We'll try and hear from him very shortly. But let's hear from Martin Brundle right now. Martin, we've had David Coulthard's thoughts. We've spoken to the team principals involved. We've seen the men who've had a little bit of champagne and then put on their nice rocket red McLaren shirts. Let's get your view on what it was like to call that most incredible last 10 laps.
Well, it was the most incredible 56 laps, wasn't it? I've actually lost my voice a little bit. It was such... I don't remember... This is my 15th year in the commentary box, commentating on a more exciting, all-dry Formula One race. We've had some wet races where there's been plenty of calamity, that's for sure. But that was, I enjoyed every little bit of it. There was so much going on all the way down the field. Let's take a look at the start, because a lot of people's races were moulded at that point in many respects. And we know now that Vettel didn't get away very well, and he knew it instantly. Look, he turns right as soon as he leaves the line. He knows he's got to defend against the two silver McLarens. One of them's already away, Button. Hamilton's up the inside, but still his job is not finished. He's now got to stay on the outside of Rosberg so that he can be on the inside into the turn 3 that follows immediately. If he'd have dropped behind Rosberg there, I think he'd had an even harder afternoon. So Vettel crucially gets that sorted out. And I have to say, hopefully we'll see on board shortly of Hamilton, because he was so brave heading down to turn 1 after all the dramas that he had going to the grid. And again, I think that in many respects won him the race. We're on board now with Lewis. So we're seeing a slow starting Vettel. JB is long gone. And look at that, Vettel tries to frighten Hamilton off the road, and he just keeps his foot absolutely flat out. He's having none of it at all. What do you think to that, David?
Well, I think, as you say, I think Sebastian took it as far as he possibly could, and maybe a more timid man would have backed out of it. But Lewis Hamilton kept his foot in. Actually almost had a wheel in the grass going into turn 1, which is not a line he would have explored during practice sessions. So I think it just shows he's an absolute racer. The commitment he has. When you consider how he cannot have been settled running into the start, and here we can see he's looking on both sides. He's weaving left, he's weaving right. And then in the end, Lewis Hamilton just squeezes up the inside. And that double defend that he had to do in the end cost him a further position, as we're going to see Rosberg, there he is, on the outside. And then obviously they have to do the run out of 2 through 3.
Martin, you mentioned early on that you were questioning Sebastian's frowning face, I suppose you'd call it, in the build-up to this race.
Well, I talk to him on the grid quite a lot, and I always see a calm, fresh, eager, boyish face. And I recognise it when Lee sort of walked with him. I think they were going to the drivers' parade at that time. And then when you tapped him on the shoulder on the grid, I thought he still didn't look as happy as he normally does. And then that's the first dismal start we've seen from him for a while. And he's already back in 3rd place. But Red Bull at that point still thought they'd got more than enough pace and tyre ability, endurance ability. So Jen's got this beautifully clear view. He's so used to that. A former world champion, of course. Horrible amount of understeer while he gets the car into turn 2 and 3 with such a heavy fuel load on board. So at this point, Jensen's had the perfect getaway after a brilliant qualifying session, and it looks as if he's set fair for the afternoon, doesn't it, in many respects of being the leading McLaren driver. Let's have a look on board from Nico Rosberg. So lots of squabbling on. Rosberg just drives straight as an arrow down the middle, and then fancies a look up the inside, and at this point he's up into P3. But of course, it's all about position now, and Vettel knew that. And Rosberg hung out to dry around the outside, managed to slot back in and not lose another place. But there's a man who drove a great race as well, Nico Rosberg, all down the field. We've seen, and Vettel then, he's still defending. Look at that, we're into turn 6 of the Grand Prix now. And finally, Vettel gets himself clear. And Rosberg just saves it there from losing out to what would have been Felipe Massa, who again got off the start way better than Alonso. Alonso had a dismal afternoon, half a minute off the leaders, and he's been outperformed comprehensively by Felipe Massa. So this is Nico Rosberg at the start of what was going to be a thoroughly busy an exciting weekend. But normally at the start of a Grand Prix, you go, okay, well that was the main part of the action. But this was just the appetizer, wasn't it?
Oh, it was fascinating. And what's interesting at this point, David, what we're seeing is that, and Martin as well for that matter, every action has a reaction. And exactly what happened at the start compromised people's pit stop strategies. It affected the way they approached the race. And ultimately, at the very end, it affected the way that it all panned out prior to the podium.
Well, what we're learning is we can't make early calls. We were talking up in the commentary box that Mark Webber looked like he was out of this race because of starting on the hard tyres and getting involved in traffic. But that is, we now know it was way too early to be making those sort of judgments. And we saw it in KL, maybe not so much in Melbourne, but we've seen it in KL and also here, that races are going to run right up to the line. And that's going to make it obviously a lot more exciting, a lot more action for us to get stuck into.
It's the way it's going, Martin, isn't it?
Well, Mark Webber came up, I thought, with a fascinating comment in the press conference of, you know what, maybe let's just not bother with qualifying at all. Let's keep all sorts of brand new, fresh tyres for the race and we'll sort the traffic out. I mean, that's not going to work at Monaco and some other places because it's quite open and you can pass into the last corner. But still, he didn't have a magic carpet ride through the field and he's standing on the podium. Fresh tyres are more important now than anything else.
Yeah, and finally, Mark Webber can leave a Grand Prix this season with a big smile on his face, and he well deserves it. He's had some harsh luck. What about Fernando Alonso, though? Finished 7th on the road today while his engineers and mechanics pack up the garage. I'm sure he'll be taking a breather after a pretty hectic Grand Prix. Let's hear from him.
Fernando, just describe your race for us, because it looks pretty hectic out there on track.
Yeah, it was, again, a tactical race with these US tyres. Some parts of the race you feel competitive, you feel that you are doing a good race, and some parts of the races you feel very slow because there are people with different strategies that catch you and overtake you without any problem. So you need to keep concentration, you need to keep focus on your own strategy, and at the end I think when you have a quick car, any strategy is good, like Webber showed today. When you have a slow car, everything is more difficult.
Just describe your start to us. Was there a problem at the start? I saw Felipe got past you.
Yeah, it was very bad at start. A lot of wheel spin, and I lost one position, and I had to close the door for the Force India that arrived very quick as well. So we lost that position there. It was not a big problem because we know this year's races, anything can happen in tire degradation, pit stops, etc. But it was not only the start, the race pace was too slow, so unfortunately we lost the opportunity.
A few fans, David, were a little bit sniffy when Fernando Alonso told us a week ago that there's good competition within Ferrari and the two drivers are racing each other. If people didn't believe him then, they should do now. Been beaten by Felipe Massa for 2 successive races. What will Fernando be doing for the next 3 weeks?
Well, I must confess, I was one that when I saw him have a sort of wry smile when almost losing...
Sorry about that. Didn't want Ian to get knocked over by a
lot of activity here.
By a very large lump of Ferrari red boxes.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought as well he was saying it in a slightly tongue-in-cheek way, which shame on me because clearly he does believe it. And Felipe has delivered on track in the last 2 races. He's been in front of Fernando. Ferrari have a lot of work to do. Maybe Fernando's chilled in as much that he's seeing the bigger picture, and of course he wants to finish as high up as he can, but if he's not in a position to win, it actually doesn't really matter in many respects where he's finishing. He's all about winning. He's a double world champion, won over 20 Grand Prix.
He'll either drive a car that can win him a race or he'll plod around and take the money.
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I don't think that is an approach that Fernando would take, but what I'm saying is, you know, he seems quite calm still. We saw little flickers in KL last week with Lewis, where it looked like he was getting frustrated. And, you know, he made the call to come in right at the end. If anyone, has of the top teams should be frustrated right now, it should be Ferrari and it should be their drivers, because they're not in the race really to win. Win these Grand Prix. They're struggling to sort of sort out their car and get themselves in a position where they can seriously challenge for race victories.
Okay, so Massa in front of Alonso for another Grand Prix. Let's hear from Felipe.
Felipe, a great start from yourself. You were right up at the front for so long and then finished 6th. These races are quite confusing for everyone.
Yes, I mean, it's quite confusing in a way that the race was just fantastic. The start was great, the pace was great. I overtook many cars, even Lewis, that he was the winner. And at the end of the day, they chose the right strategy. Not just Lewis, but it was Lewis and 4 cars together, you know, and all these cars passed me very easy. So for sure, even the guy who dominated the race, which was Sebastian, he didn't win because of his strategy, which was the same as mine. Shows that you know, we didn't make the right one.
At which point, as you as a driver, which lap do you look round and think, okay, I finally know where I'm going to finish this race?
Well, for sure, my pace on the soft was great. You know, even the pace on the soft was exactly similar as the one from Sebastian, and we took that as a consideration that we were able to do one last stop. You know, looking that everybody was stopping straight away, we took the decision already in the first stint, and unfortunately didn't work like expected.
But you must be happy with your own performance, because the past couple of races you seem to be right back on form.
I'm very, very happy with my performance. It was the best race for me this year. It was for sure one of the best from last year as well. You know, it's a shame because we could have finished in the top. You know, and it was not possible. So that is also, you know, you finish the race. You know, I did my best, but it was not enough to make everybody happy, not just me. You know.
Well, it's great to see Felipe, great to see that he's happy, and great to know that Gemma Tickner is happy as well, who's tweeted me to say, Felipe on the BBC. Thank you. It was our pleasure. Now let's talk about Lewis Hamilton one more time. We're hoping to grab hold of him when we can very shortly, and there'll be plenty of celebrations just a few metres away from us when the McLaren team have their photographs and spray their champagne and do all the other things they love to do in Formula One. But let's talk about Lewis's race. We'll ride on board and have a look at a few overtakes and things like that with both David and Martin. Do you want to kick us off, Martin?
Yeah, I'm pleased you moved out of the way of those big red boxes with the pasta and Parma ham in them, because that looked pretty dangerous out there. My son just stepped out of a Formula 2 car, having qualified third this afternoon at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And during the week, when he's less busy, I'm going to ask him to look at Lewis Hamilton's afternoon, because it's a masterclass in how to overtake in a single-seater racing car. And let's see some. There were so many, I'll just have to guess which ones they are as they come up. And so he's shaping up now behind Button. Undercuts him at the hairpin, gets himself some good traction, and he's not going to make the pass now, recognises it, so just gives up on the way in and gets a better drive out of the corner. Now, this was one of his boldest moves of the day, and I have to say, he needs to go and thank Jensen as well, because Jensen would have every right to turn in there, and started to, and then had to accept that Lewis was in his way. That could have been an airplane crash in terms of contact between those two, and I think psychologically there was a big moment there, and this is against Nico Rosberg, who made it somewhat easier. Well, Jensen did too, to an extent. So now Lewis is on a roll and he's beginning to think, I can overtake any of you lot, I'm coming through. And this was really sweet, if I remember this one back. Again, nice wide line in, and it's Massa who's gone defensive this time, and Lewis just outdrags him in terms of traction. And but Massa has nothing of it, but Lewis doesn't lose his head, doesn't get scruffy, just goes in later, on the throttle earlier, and drives clean past him. He's so calm at the steering wheel, and that, I think, was one of his sweetest moves of the day, funny enough. This was when Vettel's run out of tyres, no Kerrs left, and actually that was a present, that was a gift, in terms of Vettel could do nothing to fend off the charging Hamilton. But Lewis earned the right to do that. He stopped 3 times. He's made his way through the traffic absolutely brilliantly, and so you know, he's created all of that opportunity. It's not just that Vettel's got a problem; it's that Lewis got his car into that position. And here's another look at it. So he's got, I think it almost caught him by surprise there, and then he put a lot of faith in Sebastian Vettel, and why not? And that was to take the lead of the Grand Prix that he would never end up losing.
Yeah, that was the overtake that gave him the win. But interestingly, people have been saying up and down this pit lane, the overtake that really gave Lewis the win was getting past his teammate early doors.
Well, it's a great move. Very close action on the run down to turn 1. And when we were obviously commenting on it during the race, it was almost like Jensen didn't really think he was going to be there when he did the turn in, and he had to make a correction. And, you know, I think Martin Whitmarsh mentioned he never likes to see their guys racing, but it's great that they are able to race. So, you know, I said at the time, you know, hats off to the drivers for getting up close and personal And hats off for McLaren to actually allow them to go racing like that.
Yeah, let's dive into Twitter quickly. Thanks very much for all of your tweets. Obi_Oranu says, is Jensen going to be investigated for the mishap in the pits? I suppose if he's caused a teammate or a fellow driver to be delayed in some way during a Grand Prix, what do you think?
Well, it's certainly something that the stewards, if they feel it deserves an investigation, then they will bring him up and ask him what he was playing at. But I've never seen that before. I'm trying to recall. I know some drivers who've not come in for pit stops when we had refueling and then run the car out of fuel, but I've not seen that situation. I just think he made a mistake. I can't believe that he would have done anything different. So it cost him time, and it presumably cost Sebastian a little bit of time as well.
Sure. One of the Red Bull mechanics was joking with us earlier that it was Jensen doing it on purpose to scupper their opponent's race, and we're sure that wasn't actually the case. Here's a good one for you. Maybe I'll throw this one to you, Martin. This is from Zeb's 2000 or 22,000. Well, I would throw it to Martin, but he's apparently left. He's obviously clearly keen to get down here to the pit lane and speak to us.
I can be Martin for a moment.
Okay, here we go then. Just have to put on a gravelly voice.
Yeah.
Do you think it's easier on the fuel to do 4 stops rather than 2?
On fuel? I don't think it will have any bearing on the amount of fuel you're using. It will certainly...
It won't affect the way you're driving?
Well, you'll be going with fresher tyres. You'll actually be going a little bit faster through the corners. So arguably you'd use a bit more fuel doing more pit stops because you'll be more grip, able to keep the throttle open for longer. But I think it'll be pretty marginal. I guess it's a fair enough question, but I don't actually know the exact answer. But my gut feeling is it'll be maybe a kilo or something like that, right, difference. And to be perfectly honest, it's over just under 2.5 kilos a lap of fuel here. So it's not going to make the difference between saving a lap or not.
Madison, Michael, thanks for your tweet. Why wasn't Felipe penalised for crossing the white line on the pit lane exit?
I think we mentioned that during the commentary as well.
Yeah, it was his front left, wasn't it? Quite clearly over the line.
It is an unusual shape. It's I presume it wasn't a sort of man in charge of the painting vehicle under the influence. There's got to be some reason why it's such a dogleg. But I think the important part is the end of the pit lane. And that's the point at which you're not allowed to cross. And that's a safety thing as much as anything, so you're not drifting into the line of the cars on track. So again, it's a bit, the rules are you're meant to race within the white lines of the racetrack. The racetrack in the rule book is defined by the white line. So every time you cross over and touch a curb, you're effectively cutting that corner and effectively breaking the rules. But of course, you've got to have a little bit of common sense, and over the years the stewards accept drivers cutting a little bit the corner, but normally pit out, it's an absolute no-no. You don't touch that line.
Okay, one here saying, are Norwich City going to get promoted? That's obviously for me, and the answer is yes. Left foot braking, bearing in mind Lewis's penalty last week, do you think everybody defended within the rules today?
Well, we now know, because I wasn't entirely clear on it myself, that the stewards allow the start to unfold, and they would only really look at a weaving incident if it caused an actual accident or a coming together. I don't recall, and maybe our tweets can remind us, I don't recall anyone doing anything that looked like a double move. And again, it's not about the moving 1 inch. You need to be moving sort of half a car's width. And sometimes it can be deceptive from the camera angle, because in KL we had one of the widest tracks, which I think was 22 metres wide at certain points, and at other points in the track it was down to 18 metres. So even if the car is going in a completely straight line, the circuit might come to meet you and give the impression that you've actually weaved.
Okay, and thanks to Eddie Jordan on Twitter for tweeting, I'm missing myself on the BBC F1 forum. I don't believe for one moment that that's Eddie Jordan using Twitter. He wouldn't know how to get the thing going. Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm surprised it's taken him so long to get it through.
And when are you coming on Twitter? That's all I ever get. Get David on Twitter.
I have a young family.
You have time. You need to see your time. Yeah, DTM, Formula One and Twitter. He couldn't fit it all into his life. Right, let's hear from Sebastian Vettel, today's second place man. He's with Lee Mackenzie.
Sebastian, not the start you wanted, some great laps in between, and then you were just caught out at the very end. Sum up your emotions from today's race.
Yeah, I mean, mixed. Obviously, as you said, the start wasn't great. Didn't get a very good start, and then, traditionally the left side here is a bit weaker. But as I said, it was not a good start. I had to give the position to Lewis into turn 1. I tried to defend very hard, but then at some stage, you have to give him room, and so I found myself third, which I didn't like. But I think we did a very good first stint. We remained calm, pitted at the right time. Still had something in hand, I think, compared to the McLarens at that stage. But with the races today, obviously the earlier you pit, the earlier you are on fresh tires. So it was quite a moment when Jensen decided to pull up and asked for my tires. But I think the guys kept their heads cool and obviously waved him through, especially the front checkman, Chris. He reacted very well, and probably they were screaming, "Move on!" And I didn't lose that much time, and I was able to jump Jensen at the stop. So therefore, it was a good thing for us. After that, we were in a comfortable position in the lead, focusing probably too hard on the two-stop, and in the end, forced to have a very long stint on the prime tire that probably wasn't superior this weekend. So I had a very nice fight with I don't want to make this too long, but I had a very nice fight with Lewis in the end, which I enjoyed. But obviously at some stage I had no more weapons to get out of my pockets, and he was just on so much better tires. And then he passed me into turn 7. I think it was a good move. I was quite surprised, to be honest. But as I said, today with the strategy we decided to go, and with problems we had in the race, no radio for the majority of the race, are all things that don't make it easier, but still we achieved our maximum, and that was P2 today.
Jensen becoming a Red Bull driver for a few seconds was one of your problems, but also you had radio problems. What about cars? Were they working?
Yeah, I mean, the start was fine, no problem, and then the first stint was okay. I was happy. We didn't have any problems. After that, it was a bit of a on-off scenario. So surely it doesn't help. It's quite a bit of lap time in it, especially in the race trim with some fuel in the car. So maybe it wasn't enough to pull away, which could have saved yourself to the opposition in the last stint. But on the other hand, I think it was quite clear. There were 7 laps to go, and I had, as I said, no fresh tires, and was not able to defend.
Selfishly, these are great for us to watch, and I imagine it's great if you're someone in Lewis in that situation. What was it like for you? Is it enjoyable to drive in these types of races?
Well, I think, other than the last 7 laps, it was pretty enjoyable. I found myself in the lead for the most, for most of the race. We had a very good stop. I don't know. I mean, I know I have a strong team and good guys at the pit stop, but I didn't know that it attracts even our competitors to ask for my tires. So, jokes apart, it was a good race for myself as well. I mean, I was able just at the end of my first stint to get past Lewis. After the stop, we found ourselves in the lead, and then, arguably, yes, the strategy we went for was probably not the best, but as I said, the car was good. I think we can be happy with the results in the last 3 races. Now, obviously, we go back to Europe, so first and second is not a bad record, and even races today where you make maybe a little bit of a mistake, some things go wrong. It shows that straight away there's probably someone who will beat you, but in the end it wasn't a disaster. We still finished second, and to be honest, I'm quite happy with the trophy and with the champagne I got.
I tell you what, David, you never lose it, do you? Hey?
He's taking a picture of you, and
he's not.
Your bits and pieces.
What, my special plastic cover?
Yeah,
lovely. Let's go out onto the track here. Now, you might deny that this ever happened, because you racing drivers like to believe that emotion doesn't actually exist. But you just came out here and you stood in one of the grid slots, and you looked mournful and thoughtful for a moment. What was going through your mind?
It was a wonderful moment. I was out here all alone, and driving a Grand Prix car and driving in Grand Prix is a wonderful experience. And I've got 15 years of memory of that, some bad of course, but it was actually nice just to be able to walk out on the track and reminisce for a moment, and now we're getting to do it together. It's a pity that we have all the camera crew with us.
And there is actually something special about just standing here on the track. All those cars, 24 cars have gone. This place was reverberating to the music of those cars not long ago, and then it's all over. Amazing,
well, apart from the forklift trucks that are rather bizarrely...
The forklift trucks are slightly ruining the emotion of the moment.
Yeah.
But let's move it on. Let's hear from Mark Webber today. A fantastic bit of effort from him. He started way back there, and he crossed the line to pick up a really fantastic podium. And it was a bad start for him as well, actually, David. We should point that out as well.
Well, it was a bad start, but I can just see over the back of the pit wall there that I can see the McLaren boys starting to celebrate. So I wondered if we should start moving down there because we might catch up with Lewis Hamilton. But coming back to your question, yeah, you can see great overtake from here, from Mark down into turn 6. I had to oblige Nico to give him a bit of space there on the exit. He was coming back at him, but wasn't able to make it stick. And here we see the move on Jenson Button. And in the end, that was actually one of the easier moves he had to make in the afternoon, Jenson realising that resistance was futile.
OK, let's hear from Mark Webber.
Well, Mark, just a storming race from yourself. If somebody had offered you 18th to the podium before the race, would you have taken that?
Oh, God, yeah. I think top 6 was still going to be a decent afternoon there. You know, you never know these days with the category as it is, how things are still going to unfold. We're still learning every Grand Prix, how the race, in terms of tyres, in terms of how the DRS will work, and all this stuff that we have to get used to, let alone for us, let alone the fans trying to understand it. We're still trying to understand it. So, today was a phenomenal race for us to bounce back from yesterday, which, the car put up such a fight. It wasn't happy at all, and the guys never gave up. They worked as hard as they could. All their eyes are falling out of their heads. So they did everything. So, my drive was for them today. Particularly Crunch. His young fella's not too well at home, so my number one mechanic. So it was good to get the drive for Crunch, and all the boys, they deserve it, and of course everyone involved in the team. So it was a special race.
You maybe didn't cut through the field as quickly as you'd liked at the very beginning. You obviously didn't have cares for that. How did you just make it work?
Well, the first stint was extremely difficult because of the prime tyre. Actually, everyone else is on the soft, and we know that is quite a big grip advantage. And I really gave the primes a real hard time in the first 5 or 6 laps trying to get through those guys, and it wasn't easy because everyone using the DRS at the same time. So I must say, Will, our strategy guy, he read everything pretty much like a book before the race. He said, "This is how it's going to be. This is what's going to happen here and there," and I was like, "Okay." And it pretty much went to plan, with the exception, like you say, the first sort of 15-20 minutes of the race could have gone a little bit sweeter for us, but after that we just got our head down, and I just never gave up, and was hoping that get to Fernando, and then I could see the other guys at the hairpin get a bit closer, and I said, they're going to be mine, I'm going to make sure they're mine. So it was good.
There was a great message to Jenson on his radio saying, "Beware Webber." That could be your new slogan.
Well, normally when I arrive I try and get into it, so that's the way it is now. I think the guys, they all drove phenomenal. I mean, those tyres at the end there, I'm still not if I'm a huge fan of how it is, because sometimes the overtaking moves aren't that genuine because just the guys really have nothing to fight back with there. But that's, I suppose, it's more tactical now and a bit less racing.
Well, there's the man who drove remarkably to finish on the podium, and this is the man who won the Grand Prix. Lewis, that was incredible. What was it like inside the cockpit?
I'm not really sure how it looked outside, but it felt absolutely incredible. It felt like one of the best races I've ever competed in, Got a great start, which is obviously always a good thing. You know what it's like. You guys, when you get a good start, kind of gives you momentum. And whilst I had the Red Bull behind me, I knew that they had the real pace. But the way it planned out over the race with the right strategy and the good pit stops, I couldn't have hoped for more.
Now, we're talking about what happened on the track, but of equal importance is what happened before the race even started, before your car went out on track. Now, we can actually have a look at the shots that we got of this moment. I'm sure at this point you were just in your own little world, wishing all this wasn't happening. Tell us what's going through your head when you've been left in the car and suddenly you're kind of on this life support machine and everybody running around to save your car. What's going on?
Well, I think as a driver, I think you're the heart of the team. You have to be as calm as you can possibly be. If I was raising questions on the radio, then I think everyone can hear it and they get even more and more nervous. So I was trying to remain calm and know that if they get the car out, then I'm still going to do the same job as I done. So I was just trying to keep my heart calm.
Was that hard?
Calm and composed. No, I felt relaxed. Obviously, more and more people were coming around, and I heard a few odd different words being shouted, the guys as they're doing their job. But I was so grateful to be able to get out, and because we worked so hard throughout the whole weekend to get in and just do the race. You want to compete, don't you? You want to see through the race. Starting at the back is not really as much fun. So.
There were 2 moments of immense bravery today, both down into turn 1, one off the start-finish line when Sebastian just tried to squeeze you out of it, and then when you were up the inside of your teammate to take the position, and you just kept your foot in. Take us through those.
Yeah, Sebastian was very, very tough to get past. He put a massive fight on, but I knew that with the tyres that I had and his tyres going off, I really had to time it right. I didn't want to leave it to the last couple of laps because I think he would have maybe been able to hold me off. So I really wanted to make sure I did it earlier. And he put a great battle into turn 14 and the last corner.
Just talk us through this, Lewis, if you would.
Yeah, sure. You're talking about the start. Well, here, he was moving over and it was a tricky one. I'm just behind Jensen, so it's not definitely sure whether I've got the downforce and the grip was there. I could see Sebastian was on my left side, so I went a little bit wide here to make sure he couldn't sneak back in. And, he put up a good fight, but it's the first real good start I've had for a while, so I was very, very happy. And after that with Jensen.
Can you take us through this? Because this was it.
I got a great toe. I still had some curves left, so I was cursing up to here, and then I cursed again, and I was just able to use the slipstream. And I don't know if he expected me to go up the inside, but he left plenty of room. It was very, very fair, and still put up a great fight. He tried to come back after that.
So that's interesting.
Were you wincing in the cockpit, thinking, "Don't turn in on me, please"?
No, of course, you never want to crash your teammate, so.
But you just said something there, which I've never driven with KERS, so I wouldn't have thought of it. But you were using KERS off of 16, cross the start-finish line, you get a fresh charge, and then you hit the KERS again. Yeah. That's something we must remember next time we're watching that. We both missed that in commentary. Yeah. But coming back to the emotions of this, we saw you 1 week ago in KL, bitterly disappointed, soul-searching a little bit maybe, and then you're at the highest peak here of your emotion. How are you able to bounce back? And even during the race itself, at what point did you really believe you could win this race?
Well, I think when you start a Grand Prix, you always have to believe at some point the opportunities will come and you can win the race. I mean, I always feel when I go into a race, I can win this, even when I'm further back. I don't know if it's just me being silly, but that's just how I do. But I think the last race was tough, and there's been several different experiences in my career where you've had lows and you've come back on a high. And I came here very early. I came here straight after the race, in Malaysia, and just tried to reset everything and turn. Whilst I did think, of course, I thought about the race, and my belief still is whether I had the tyres to do the race or not. And I just had to put it in the back of my mind. But I know I definitely came here still lingering a little bit on the previous weekend, but I was able to really switch as I started to work on the car, put all my energy and whether it's positive or negative into the race weekend and into getting the car on the pace and doing the job.
What was interesting, Lewis, was that this race built and built and built until you were told by your guys you're catching Sebastian Vettel. What was the moment like when you went past Seb and took the lead for this race? Because this was the moment that it happened.
I mean, Sebastian, he is a great world champion, and he drives very, very well in his car. And I knew that he, from past experiences, he's very good at defending. He's got a very good car, great traction, slightly better downforce than we have. Whilst his tyres were going off, for me, as I was behind him, I thought, okay, I think it's 5 laps left. I'm going to have to find a way of getting him and not doing it with the DRS or KERS at the back straight, because he's got room to defend there. I've got to take him in a place that he's not going to expect it. And there's turn 7 and turn 8 where I passed before turn 8. I think Michael maybe a year or so ago. And I thought I'm going to have to try.
So you're thinking back to previous races when you're closing in on the current
world champion? No, but from experiences, you know where you can possibly overtake. I've never overtaken into 17, apart from maybe a back marker. But so I knew it was still possible, and so I went a little bit wide on the way in to turn 6, cut in tight, make sure I got and I saved all the KERS that you usually use a bit of KERS coming out of turn 3. I used most of my KERS coming out. Fortunately, still had some for the back straight to keep the gap.
You've won a world championship, you've won a lot of Formula 1 races, a lot of all sorts of other championships. Why did you have a tear in your eye just before the podium procedure? What was so emotional about today's race for you?
I think it's just a combination of things. It's been, you put so much into a season, your preparations over the winter, and you get things all good, and then you're close to winning, but I haven't won for quite some time. It feels like a long time since I won a Grand Prix. I mean, I think it was Belgium or
Belgium
Canada
last year, yeah.
And I don't know how many months that is, but it feels like an eternity. And whilst we're all working and we've had lots and lots of success, I think it was really a combination of obviously everything that happened in the garage. Whilst I'm keeping composed, perhaps subconsciously there's nerves rattling there, and then having a good start. And in the race, you know, it's not all plain sailing from you know, where, as it is sometimes from P1. You know, I was second, and I went back to third, and then I had to stay out for a little bit longer. Then I was behind the Ferraris, got overtaken by Massa or Fernando, and so I never really knew right until the end that I could do it. In my last 5 laps, I was honestly saying, "Come on, baby." I was rubbing the cockpit saying, "Please," because I had a bit of a flat spot from overtaking Nico.
Yeah, you looked at left front, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I had quite a big flat spot. The vibrations were, if you look at my the radio on the front was wobbling quite a bit, and I was, "Please, don't go on me." Just so at the last couple of laps, I was honestly trying to nurse her and treat her the best I could.
So it was just pure relief then when you were about to go on the podium.
I think it was relief. I think it was the enjoyment, I think, of the whole race, the amount of energy. And you know, I've always said I really race my heart, put my heart and soul into it. And I think I wasn't able to hold it in. I think it's one of the best Grand Prix wins I can remember.
Well done. Congratulations. And meanwhile, your brother's racing as well at Donington this weekend.
Yeah, I'm about to go and give him a call and wish him luck for his race. I think it's in about an hour's time.
Brilliant. Well, here's a swap that I think you'll enjoy. I'll take the microphone, you take the trophy. What do you think?
Sounds good.
I thought you might say that. Lewis, congratulations from all of us. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. What a happy, smiley boy he is. Interesting hearing Lewis talk there about what was going on in the race.
Yeah.
He can't quite remember who he was and wasn't overtaken with so much going on, but he can remember with total clarity what was going through his mind at specific moments during that Grand Prix. Can you relate to that?
Well, I can, because he's in his office. He's been racing since he was a young man, and he's building up the whole picture. And it's something that a racing driver does do. You're making moves to position and try and get the other car out of position. So 3 or 4 corners down the line, or maybe half a lap down the line, you'll hopefully get yourself in a position to make the overtake. And I thought it was fascinating how he reminded us of something about the double push of Kerr's. And also he had the foresight not to use Kerr's out of 3 and deliver it all in 6. How did he know leaving 3 he would be in a position to do that coming out at 6? He couldn't know with any certainty, of course, but he was planning it, he was positioning it. But anyway, I had a reminder there not to take out one of my earplugs during an interview because he said he was when he was
Good. I'm glad you were reminded of that, so it won't happen again. Yeah, good. I suppose we could get him in the commentary box, but he tends to be busy on a Sunday, and we're glad about that because the boy gives us some amazing racing to watch.
It was superb, wasn't it? What was fascinating is he was obviously, so many things happened to him in that Grand Prix. He was struggling to remember some of them. But you're right. The process behind the steering wheel was with crystal clarity. But who he overtook and when, you could tell he was sort of a bit punch drunk almost. Because cars have been coming at him all afternoon.
Okay, now here's a great line for you, talking about Italian cars and Italian drivers. Jarno Trulli's quickest lap today was quicker than Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari. A wonderful stat. We enjoy that, and it's music to the ears of Mike Gascoigne, who's the technical director down at Team Lotus. Mike, congratulations. You were racing and beating the midfield in Formula One today. How does that feel?
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, it's only 16th place, but it's the best 16th place I've ever achieved, and a really big step for the team because, you know, we were genuinely racing, and it's not that we've inherited something. We've raced them and beat them on pace and the established teams, and that's a big step for us as a team.
I'm sorry, Matt, we didn't get much chance to talk about you today because there was so much action going on at the front. And you're a racer. You were probably as much enjoying the top 5 or 6 shootout as you were how well your cars were doing at the back of the... Well, they weren't in the back. Where you 15th, 16th, you finished in the end.
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, it's one of those few races where, you know, we're exhausted and we've raced to 16th place. But normally you sort of just go away and that's that. But actually I want to sit down and watch the race again because what a race for Formula One. And you know, actually tribute to Pirelli with what they've done. They've taken a risk with these tyres. And, you know, there's all these theories that tyre degradation would produce good racing and all of that. And today has absolutely proved it. And the different strategies, and for us on the pit wall, you know, we're sort of targeting people who are doing 3 stops, we're doing 2, you know, at different periods of the race. They're doing totally different lap times. And I think if you remember last week, Martin, you sort of said about the lap time we were doing compared to someone else, and I made the point, yeah, but they're on 3 stops, they've got new tyres at the moment. We're not, you know, you're racing different people, you're trying to work out when these lap times are going to come in and what lap time your guy's got to do. Even if he's 2 seconds slower than someone else, he's still racing him. and it just makes for fantastic racing.
So just quickly then, you're aiming at the midfield. Which is the first scalp you think you can take with Team Lotus of the midfield runners?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I think it's probably Williams. We're looking at some big updates, and for Barcelona, we've made a lot of progress just recently in the wind tunnel, and you know, we're clearly struggling when we have cool days and low track temperatures. We're struggling for one lap pace. But we've always said from winter testing that our race pace is really, really good, and we're very confident in it. And it's just trying to understand these tyres, because people can clearly get better one lap pace. I mean, we were racing Maldonado, and really we felt we had him from the first few laps, and we qualified 2 seconds behind him. So, you know, these tyres are really difficult to get on top of.
Mike, just sorry, if I heard correctly, did you say unfortunately you're racing Williams, or fortunately?
Well, I say unfortunately, but just because it's a great team and a great name, and you know, they're the sort of one that we're going to pick off first, and you know, you'd like to see them nearer the front. So maybe you know, I'm a bit of an old git, and you know, a bit of nostalgia, but yeah, you know, you want to see them as a team up the front, because they're one of the great teams. But you know, we're Team Lotus now, and if we're racing Williams, well, that's good for us.
Great, Mike, thank you. Lovely to see sentiment still exists in Formula One. Lovely to see the yellow and green of Team Lotus up there. And well done today. 16th and 19th in front of Perez and Maldonado. You should be very happy. Go and enjoy a nice drink on the flight home.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, well done, Mike. Well done. Let's make our way out of the garage now, because if you just have a look over here, you can see a load of guys lined up waiting for us to leave so they can actually get on with their job. And we got a big thumbs up for leaving there, because of course they've got to get this kit broken down, put onto freight and flown straight back to Europe. Let's have a little look at some celebrations now, because we've been so used to seeing Red Bull celebrate over the past few races. In fact, it seems, as I said last week, the F1 Forum is just always finishing with celebrations for Seb and Red Bull. Great to see Lewis back up there.
And how relaxed he is in this environment. You know, it's easy to forget just how much of not how much a racer he is, but how much emotion he puts into his racing. And the time he took there for us to really explain how the race was unfolding. You know, that wasn't a man that was sort of, you know, waiting to run away and catch his flight home.
Did you catch Mark Webber's comment in the press conference? He said, I'm pleased somebody's finally beating Seb. Then he had to he hit reverse on that, didn't he? And then,
I didn't mean that, though.
Well, yeah, what I meant was, but he was just happy for anybody to beat Sebastian, even if it was a main rival.
Well, actually, that's a good point for every driver in Formula One. Sebastian Vettel can be beaten in 2011. It's a good thing to take with you to Europe, actually, in terms of your mental armoury, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. We've not seen for a long time any driver or any team dominating Formula One, and certainly not winning all the Grand Prix. So there will be multiple winners during this year. I think that maybe we didn't expect, after the qualifying performance difference, that McLaren would be the team that were doing it this weekend. You know, in KL they looked a lot closer to achieving that when they were only 1/10 away in quali. But it's going to have twists and turns during the course of the season, and I think, as Mike Gascoigne mentioned there, and I mentioned in commentary, the tyres are the fundamental differentiator here, depending on what strategy and how the drivers use the tyres and what setup they're able to achieve.
Red Bull were on pole by 0.7 of a second. We were hearing this morning that their tyre wear was far superior, we thought, to any other team on the grid, and they didn't win the race, so they didn't get the strategy right. But I think they've made a critical error by packaging their KERS in a compromised way for the speed of the car. Maybe when they get that sorted out, they've got 3 weeks now to Turkey, and it's going to be important for them. Martin Whitmarsh said at the beginning of the weekend, it's the development race which will win this year's World Championship, and they're coming at them now.
Yeah, at the moment, in terms of the development race, McLaren are winning that. Okay, thank you both so much. Just a couple of very quick tweets. Lots of you saying how nice it is to see Lewis Hamilton not being corporate, just being totally relaxed and totally honest, which is lovely to see from a Formula One driver. I'll leave Lee B. Coward as the final question. Boys, was that one of the best Grand Prix we've ever seen?
It's got to be up there. It'll be down to personal opinion, but there was so much action. You know, so many things to talk about. You know, comeback from the back with Mark Webber, Michael Schumacher showing some good form
Nico
again
Rosberg
after
driving
Nico
well.
Rosberg. Lewis's drive, of course, was impeccable. The only one of the main runners that appeared to make an error of judgment was Jensen, actually, which is we're not used to seeing from him with what happened in the pit box. But yeah, it was a great Grand Prix.
Tell you what sums it up for me: the last two runners who were unlapped, which I think was Buemi and Heidfeld, was it? Whoever it was, the last two unlapped still ran into each other 2 corners from home, fighting over the 13th or 14th.
And that's why you all got out of bed at 7
up.
o'clock this morning. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, now we go to Turkey, 3 weeks away. Plans between now and then. Is your first DTM race taking place before Turkey, or that's a man taking his racing seriously?
I think it's the end of the month, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
End of this month?
Or beginning of the following month?
Okay, well,
I don't actually
You're
know the
obviously
date.
ready for it, fully prepared.
Great.
I'm fully focused on BBC at the moment.
I thought the first race was last weekend. Were you not there? Oh no, that was
yeah.
You
would think I wasn't there.
And the rest of today will be you keeping tabs on your boy Alex, who's racing today, and he had a good quali session.
He did. He's P3 on the grid, a 10 to 2 shy of pole, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how he can get on this afternoon. He got a puncture yesterday. Started 4th, got a puncture, which was sad. So we're looking for some points today, but. Yeah, lots going on. Le Mans next weekend to do a bit of practice for Alex. So lots going on.
Okay, May the 1st in Hockenheim is your first race, so you better get preparing. That's not long.
Good.
I'm
ready
good
for
to
it.
know. Fine. All right, wonderful. One final message for Eddie Jordan, who definitely would not have allowed us to be on the television without pressing red and watching every moment of it.
Hugs and kisses, Eddie.
Yeah. Look at these two, hugs and kisses. Of course, look forward to seeing Eddie in Turkey. Eddie, thank you for joining us, and everybody else for getting involved in the F1 forum, the tweets, the emails, the messages, and we were so happy, weren't we, to bring these people what they believe might be one of the greatest Grand Prix ever. Have a great few weeks, enjoy it yourselves, catch your breath after this Grand Prix, and we'll see you in Turkey for another Formula 1 forum and more from F1 2011. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Who's gonna thrill me? Who's gonna hold me tight tonight?
They get ready to charge.
Why did I tell you I was going to Shanghai? I want to be with you tonight. Why don't you stop me when I talk about Shanghai? And I want to be with you tonight. Who's gonna kiss me? Who's gonna thrill me? Who's gonna hold me tight?
Mark Webber, a stunning performance. Lewis Hamilton brilliantly wins the Chinese Grand Prix.
That was amazing. Next time on Formula 1, Round 4, Turkey.